Close your eyes for a second. Imagine waking up tomorrow morning. Same alarm, same ceiling, same half-dark room, and reaching for your phone out of habit. But instead of the news, instead of texts from people you owe responses to, there is a single notification from your brokerage app. The number on the screen does not make sense at first. Your brain refuses it the way it refuses things that are too large, too sudden, too outside the boundary of what reality is supposed to look like. You read it again. $1.5 trillion. Not a glitch. Not a dream. Real. The crypto position you bought 4 years ago, the one your friends called your phase, your running joke, your let him have this one, moved overnight and kept moving and did not stop until it rewrote the rules of what one private human being can own. You are now, by every measurable standard, the wealthiest person who has ever lived. And here is the thing no one tells you. The thing no Forbes article, no wealth psychology study, no fantasy has ever prepared you for. The hardest part is not the money. The hardest part is what the money does to everything else. This is that story. Part 1. The number it is a Tuesday. 3 years ago, you were a high school history teacher in Portland. You drove a 2008 Camry with a cracked dashboard and a heater that only worked on the driver's side. You made $54,000 a year, and you were genuinely, quietly fine with that. You had an apartment with good light, a coffee shop 2 blocks away where the barista knew your order without asking. That was your life. Ordinary in the most beautiful way. Small, knowable, yours. Now your net worth is larger than the GDP of the Netherlands, larger than 4 Elon Musks, larger than every professional sports franchise in North America combined. If you spent $1 million every single day starting right now, you would run out of money somewhere around the year 4300. And everyone knows, not celebrity famous, not athlete famous, something new. Something the English language does not have a clean word for yet. The kind of famous where governments call your personal number, where strangers stand outside your building not for an autograph, but because they want to be near whatever you have come to represent in their minds. Within 48 hours, you have a security team. 12 people, rotating shifts, former military, armed. The kind of protection usually reserved for heads of state. Within 6 weeks, you have a property, 14 acres, a wall you cannot see over from the street, a guardhouse staffed around the clock, a main house invisible from the gate, $180 million. Your accountant does not even flag it. 61 people now work at your home. A Boeing 747, gutted and rebuilt as a flying apartment, $380 million. A private island in the Maldives, a yacht with a submarine bay, a helipad, a full medical suite, and a cinema, $580 million. Nobody warns you about the next part. Your wealth grows faster than you can spend it. Even parked in the safest, most boring instruments on earth, your net worth increases by tens of millions of dollars every single day. You wake up richer than you went to sleep, without doing anything, without deciding anything. Everything is handled. All you want is a cup of coffee. Part 2. The things you cannot buy back. You want to go back to the coffee shop. The 1-2 blocks from your old apartment. The one where they knew your name before you said it. The security team needs 45 minutes of lead time for any public appearance. When you finally arrive, the room goes quiet the moment you walk through the door. The barista's hands shake slightly as she makes your order. Someone at a corner table is filming you over the top of a laptop screen and pretending not to. The coffee tastes exactly the same, but the chair feels wrong. The room feels wrong. Every person in it is either performing indifference or not bothering to perform it at all. You leave after 4 minutes. You never go back. You write a check. $800 million to a global hunger initiative, the largest single charitable donation in recorded human history. The news covers it for 11 hours. Then the math starts circulating. People realize that against what you have, $800 million is roughly 3 weeks of passive returns. They do the math, and then they want more. You stop writing checks. Not because you stopped caring, because there is no number that resolves anything when the number never stops growing. The friends are harder. Marcus was your college roommate. The person who argued with you about everything. Films, politics, whose turn it was to do the dishes. That friction was the whole friendship. Two people who did not agree on anything and loved each other for it. He flies out to visit. He compliments the house. He compliments the grounds. He compliments the wine at dinner without knowing anything about wine. He agrees with everything you say for 2 days straight. He laughs at things that are not funny. On the second evening, you make a deliberately bad point just to test it. He nods thoughtfully. You watch him leave from the upstairs window. Same person. Every edge filed smooth, the others stop calling at their own pace. The ones who still call have a new quality in their voices. Careful, measured, like they are weighing each sentence before releasing it. You understand why. You would probably do the same. That does not make it easier to sit across from part 3. The world outside the lawsuits begins 6 months in. A former colleague claims you verbally promised him a stake in something. A woman in Minnesota says you made a commitment at an event you have no record of attending. An LLC you have never heard of claims intellectual property rights over a concept loosely related to your investment strategy. Your lawyers use the word frivolous, the way other people use filler words. But each case cost hundreds of thousands of dollars to dispute. Each one puts your name in a headline. Your annual legal budget crosses $35 million. Settling costs less than fighting, even when you are completely right. So you settle some, and every settlement generates 5 new filings. You read the weekly summaries the way you used to grade papers. Methodically, without feeling much. Then you meet Elena. She teaches architecture at Berkeley, drives a 12-year-old Volvo, has opinions about everything, and does not mention your money once in the first 3 conversations. You meet her at a dinner you almost didn't attend. You talk for 2 hours about things that have nothing to do with what you own. It feels like something you have not felt in months. The sensation of being in a room where no one is calculating your value to them. You see her again, and again. 6 weeks in, something real is forming. Then you notice the small things. She mentions your pilot's name in a conversation you never had with her. She knows which car you prefer in the city. Small pieces of research. Nothing alarming alone, but assembled together, they tell a different story. She knew who you were before the night you met. The question, once it forms, does not unform. It sits behind every dinner, behind every laugh, behind every moment that felt real. Was that genuine? Or was that also prepared? You don't ask. You stop calling. 3 weeks later, a tabloid runs photos. The restaurant. Her leaving your property. A source described as close to the couple. She never spoke to anyone. You know this, but her name is out now. Her face, her workplace, the street she lives on. Strangers are sending threatening messages to her accounts. She had a private life before she sat across from you at that dinner. Ordinary, anonymous, entirely hers. You erased it just by being in the same room. You send an apology. She reads it. She does not respond. Part 4. The family your mother calls on a Sunday morning. Her voice is the same as it has always been. She asks if you are eating. She tells you about a bird that keeps landing on her back fence. For 10 minutes, your shoulders drop and your jaw unclenches, and you almost forget what your life has become. Then she mentions your brother. He would never ask her to call. That is not who he is. But his mortgage is behind. His truck needs work. You wire him $3 million that afternoon. He does not call to say thank you. 3 months later, at a family dinner you flew everyone to on the Boeing 747, he sits at the far end of the table and speaks to cousins, to aunts, to anyone except you. When you try to catch his eye, he looks at his plate. He leaves before dessert without saying goodbye. The following week your mother calls again. Different voice this time. She tells you your brother said to a cousin that the money broke the family, that everything changed when it came. She has a security detail she never asked for. One son who will not speak to the other, a family that used to fit around a kitchen table, and now requires a private aircraft and a catering staff to be in the same room. You cannot take back the wire transfer. You cannot show up at his door without 2 armed men at the curb. The distance between your lives is not something a conversation can cross, so you stop trying. And the silence sets. Not with a single moment, but with time passing and nothing filling it. Part 5, 3:00 in the morning your security director calls a meeting on a Wednesday. Someone on the household staff has been selling information. Schedule details, interior photographs. Small things, but consistent, paid, ongoing. They traced it through metadata on a leaked photograph. The angle matched a specific window in the East Corridor. Her name is Diane. She has been here since the first month. Thursday morning, a man in a suit walks her out. She carries a single cardboard box. She does not look up at the windows. The gate closes behind the car. By Friday, someone new will have her badge. You take the yacht out for a week. The Mediterranean. The water is a color that looks edited. Dinner is prepared by a chef who spent 12 years in Michelin-starred kitchens. The table is set for one. You sail back. You sleep poorly. At 3 km in the morning, you get up and walk the property. The house is silent except for the low hum of climate systems. A security camera at the end of the corridor tracks your movement. You step left. It follows. You go outside. The grass is cold and wet under your feet. You walk to the middle of the lawn and stop. And then you look up. The sky is the same sky. That is the thing that undoes you. Standing there in the dark. It is exactly the same sky you used to look at, from the roof of your apartment building in Portland when the rent was 2 weeks late and you didn't care, because it was summer and the stars were out. And everything still felt like it could become anything. Same depth, same silence, same complete indifference to everything happening beneath it. You stand there until the cold reaches your bones. Then you go back inside. Closing, you fly home from a week in Japan. Your assistant meets you on the tarmac. She asks how the trip was. Wonderful, you say. Back through the gate. Past the guardhouse. Past the pool you have used twice. Past the tennis court you have never touched. Down the main corridor where the cameras adjust as you walk. Past the wine cellar. Into the office where 7 screens show your portfolio, your companies, your calendar, and a news ticker that mentions your name twice in the first 30 seconds. You sit down. Outside, the security shift is changing. The groundskeeper takes the riding mower across the lawn in long, straight passes. 61 people work here. You are the only one who lives here. Here is what psychology actually tells us about extreme wealth, and why almost no one is prepared for it. Research on hedonic adaptation shows that human beings return to a stable emotional baseline after almost any life change, no matter how dramatic. Lottery winners, accident survivors, people who gain and lose fortunes. Within 18 months to 2 years, the emotional impact of the change fades. And you are left with the same internal world you always had, just inside a different set of walls. The things that genuinely determine human well-being, deep relationships, a sense of purpose, the feeling of being known rather than observed, cannot be purchased. They can, in fact, be made significantly harder to access by the very wealth that was supposed to make everything easier. Psychologists call this the social recalibration problem. Every relationship now carries an invisible variable, the money, and once that variable exists, it never fully disappears. Not for you. Not for the people around you. Not even for the people who love you most and mean it completely. The coffee shop was never about the coffee. The friendship with Marcus was never about agreement. Your brother was never about the mortgage. They were about being known. Being ordinary. Being someone who fit inside a life small enough to understand. And the most disorienting truth of extreme wealth is this. The things you needed most, you already had them. In the apartment with good light. In the coffee shop 2 blocks away. In the car with the cracked dashboard and the heater that only worked on one side. You had them before the number appeared on the screen. And no number, however large, can take you back to the moment before you lost them. If this made you think differently about what you are actually building, and why, leave a comment. I read every single one. Skudsbird if this is your first time here. Every video on this channel is designed to go exactly this deep. I will see you in the next one.